Hi, my name's Steve Dolby,
I'm Milan Solis.
and this is WhiskyAtEase.
Chill.
That's it.
Hi everyone, welcome to Odyssey number 3 from WhiskyAtEase.
That's right. We're going to bring you 3 whiskies. They're going to be linked together, and this time we're going to do it slightly different.
Let's mix it up.
Mix it up. We're going to tell you how they're linked this time. We're not going to tell you the whiskies. So you'll get the one whiskey from this episode, how it's linked, some tips on how it's linked, and then we'll see whether you can work out what's going to be in episode 2 of this Whiskey Odyssey from WhiskyAtEase.
Cool. That's cool. So we need you, the audience, to comment below and to tell us what you think will be the next whiskey after this one.
And it's not going to be easy, because the particular reason that we've linked these whiskies together is because this industry is all about barrels. And there are a lot of them. And they go all over the world. And in fact, the 3 whiskies that we're going to feature in this Odyssey are from 3 completely different countries.
Yep, exactly. Yes.
Kind of, sort of. You see how easy this is going to be? I'll tell you what.
Anyway.
Let's tell you about the whiskey we're going to feature in this episode 1 of our Odyssey. And it's a cold whiskey, because apparently it's a bit chilly. Looks like a penguin. Sorry.
Look at that little jumper. That's so cool.
It was a bit of a surprise because we're obviously based in Belgium, and especially this time of year, you order whiskey, you go to the shops, and they wrap it up. They gift wrap it for you because they assume it's a gift. And so Moraine unwrapped this only to find that it's got a jumper on it, which is definitely weird, but we think it's brilliantly cute.
It is very cute. Yes. I can definitely see some little dog, like some Chihuahua, walking around with this outside.
I'm a manly American whiskey drinker, and I'm going to put this on my manly Chihuahua.
To make sure that everybody knows that this dog means business.
Can you imagine some marketing company saying, I've got a really good way on how we can fix Maker's Mark in people's mind. We'll put a jumper on this ludicrously, stupidly small dog so people notice it, and it says Maker's Mark.
Okay, but let's not look at the marketing thing. We are really gonna talk about the undressing part.
Yeah, have we just made this an X-rated video? All right.
We're going to talk about this.
And you're excited about this, aren't you? Because you've never tasted this before.
Exactly.
I cannot believe you've done that.
I can't believe you've done this.
I cannot believe that I've never tried a Maker's Mark in my life.
Super.
As a self-pronounced or self-alcoholic. Yes, exactly.
As a whiskey lover.
As a whiskey lover, I can't believe I never had a Maker's Mark.
I mean, we have some other bourbons up here. I mean, we've got some from Jack Daniels, Gentleman Jack, Four Roses, all the classics. Uncle Nearest. One of my favorites.
Awesome stuff. Yes.
And the Evan Williams, smoothest bourbon that I've ever tasted. And this is a Maker's Mark. But, you know, saying that, I have tasted this before, but I didn't actually have a bottle in there ready to rock and roll. So that's changed.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool.
So let's just talk about Maker's Mark. It actually started off back in 1953, so it's not too old a distillery.
It's not very old, no.
Which basically means it's still managed by the same family. They don't own it anymore. So their great-great-grandfather, Bill Samuels, started it off, bought a distillery in Loretto, Kentucky.
Why does all the great whiskey in the US come from Kentucky?
I don't know. Maybe because of the environment and the maturation, and
probably
it's the right
probably.
environment,
yeah,
and there's nothing else to do there.
Humidity and exactly lack of any other. Yeah, okay.
Loretto, L-E-O-R-E-T-T-O. It's great because if you go on Google Maps, you can actually see all the warehouses around the distillery. I've been looking at this. Hey, you know, if I see it on the shelves, I drink it. It's very nice. It's very smooth. It is a kind of quality high-end bourbon as such, not overly expensive. In fact, in the 1960s, their tagline was, "It tastes expensive because it is Maker's Mark." But there's a great story on how they got the original recipe.
Okay, tell me.
So every other whiskey company that we know of, distillery that we know of course, what they do is they work out what percentage of grains and rye and corn and all those kinds of things. We should say that this is a bourbon, so at least 50% of it has to be corn. People then put the mash together, they spend 5 days boiling it and get the sugars sorted out, and then they distill it, and then they basically try and get a taste from that new make distillate. Bill Samuels didn't want to wait that long, so apparently he had 4 or 5 recipes that he wanted to basically test. So he made bread. After all, he's got grains, okay? So he ground it up, he made bread out of it, and he got people to taste the bread.
So the corn and the rye and everything. Okay.
And apparently the recipe that most people liked best, the best bread, was one without rye. So very unusually from an American whiskey supplier, there is no rye in this. So it's actually barley, wheat, and corn. And I like rye in a whiskey, so I don't know how I've got away with this one, but it's cool. And you don't really like corn in a whiskey, but you still like bourbon. So
exactly.
This is a fabulous industry we're in, isn't it? Maker's Mark still has, the CEO is still a member of the family, so it's now the great-great-great-grandson or whatever the process is.
I love like these family companies that, it's just cool.
Yeah, there is a problem. If we look at the back of this, it says that this is Suntory, okay? So it's actually part of a large conglomerate.
Okay.
In fact, the distillery was sold out in the 70s, and it went through takeovers, and takeovers.
I get that, but you need that in order to grow. If you really want your brand to have a global presence, and you really want to shift up the way, the amount of things that you create.
The number of bottles you ship.
Exactly.
No, I agree entirely. So yes, but it's still got the head of the family is still sort of managing director and stuff. Let's talk about the drink itself. You're going to get a really nice surprise because I know what your whiskey tasted like, so you're really going to quite enjoy this.
Every new whiskey to me is a nice
surprise and a pleasant experience.
It's not always pleasant, but it's a nice surprise.
So here's some useless piece of information. Notice that they misspell whiskey.
Okay.
Or not. So American whiskey is spelled Whiskey.
Oh yeah, exactly.
This is American whiskey, but in fact it's only one of 2 whiskies in America that's spelt without the E. So it's spelt the Scottish way, so without the E. So that's one of the unusual areas.
They still haven't figured that out, so they need to watch our video to make sure. Like, we're
spelling it wrong. Yes, I'm fairly sure. I'll email him off. I'll email Bill's great-great-grandson and say, hey, check out the video. The red stuff is done by hand, so the wax dip, so somebody gets the bottle and they dip it in the wax, which basically means that every combination of this wax around the top is unique. And based upon whether the person that does it puts it in quickly or long, depends how much wax goes on, depends how much it runs out. So no bottle is the same.
So would we be able to visit the distillery at some point and hand dip the whiskey ourselves?
Yes. You thought the answer was going to be no, didn't you?
Yes.
No, there is. You can actually buy a bottle undipped, go and dip it yourself at the visitor's shop, and then
that
walk
is
away
cool.
with it.
That's cool. Yes, we're coming.
We're on our way. Let's talk about something else. Small batch. We like small batch whiskies.
We like small batch whiskies.
Do you know what actually a small batch whiskey is?
A small batch.
Yeah, nobody else does either. There does not appear to be any definition.
It's not like from this amount of liters or gallons. It's no longer a small batch.
No, I don't think there's an official. I've not come across an official line, but they do quote it at Maker's Mark. So they say that about 1,000 gallons of mash, is the maximum that they do in one go. Of which they get 20 barrels out of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Which, if you work it out, that actually comes out at 4,800 bottles.
Probably.
So per small batch, that's 4,800 bottles.
Let's call it 5,000. Yes.
4,800 bottles. All right. How do you suddenly get 200 bottles from nowhere? That's awesome. But anyway, we'll worry about that one later.
It's called marketing.
Yes, it is. And they actually know how much corn that is. So, grain, not corn. So 200 bushels of grain goes into each mash. So they can actually work out from a field of, and all their grain comes in, exactly how much they're going to get. The maths works out quite well. And of course, if we also take out the fact that they now do 24 million bottles a year, we could actually work out how many mashes they actually have to do.
24 million bottles.
In the 72, 73, they were doing about 150,000 bottles a year.
Okay, so they've grown pretty hard in the last about 50 years.
And the fact that these are still hand dipped.
You need a lot of dippers.
Yeah.
So would they have a big dipper and a
little dipper? They have little dippers over the summer holidays for the students come in, and they're called little dippers. I like that. That's funny. There was a key player called David Pickerels that joined Maker's Mark. He's one of their most famous master distillers from the. He's actually called the founding father of craft distillation. So he actually worked with a lot of smaller distilleries But during his time at Maker's Mark, over a period of sort of 10 years or whatever the number is, he went from 150,000 to their first 1 million bottles a year.
Wow.
And that was kind of 74, 75.
Okay, so he did a 10x on their production.
He absolutely did
Wow.
that. The guy's actually quite famous. God bless him, he's not with us anymore. He died quite young. But if you really want to hear a story, you want to look at the Blackened American Whiskey. So he was a co-founder of a brand called Blackened American Whiskey, which has a really good birth because it's actually co-produced with Metallica.
Oh yeah, that's right. I heard about that one. Yes. Okay.
So whilst the whiskey's being matured in the barrel, they play Metallica music at it. And the sub-frequencies, this is the theory anyway, but the sub-frequencies of the whiskey actually vibrate the whiskey in the barrel. I have a subsystem under my desk, so when I'm playing music, I can actually feel it on my feet. So it kind of makes sense to me.
Okay.
But apparently the band also say that every 5,000 bottles, which seems to be every small batch, has a different playlist.
Okay.
So I don't actually know whether you can get a bottle and find out what its playlist was.
Yeah,
I mean,
or the other way
from
around.
marketing.
Could you like create a playlist that they will use for your bottle or your barrel?
And more importantly, does the playlist make the taste change differently? They actually have the Metallica Black Album. You can actually buy whiskey that was listening to the Metallica Black Album while it was maturing in the barrel.
That is so...
It is pretty cool. But that was David Pickerell's view.
Anyway,
and David actually thinks that Blackened American Whiskey was what we remembered for.
We're talking about Maker's Mark.
We are talking about Maker's Mark.
Blackened.
So as a drink, it's supposed to be incredibly smooth. It's a relaxing whiskey, if you like. It's not really designed for the ranch drinking. And there's I don't know whether you've noticed this, but there's a famous police kind of naval detective program on television. And Gibbs, has always got a bottle of this in his garage. Never quite see the label, but it's such a distinctive shape. It's what he drinks. And if Gibbs drinks it, I drink it.
Damn good.
So that leaves one thing to do, really. Glasses.
We need glasses.
So while you enjoy decapping this, seeing as we've already taken the wax off.
Wax goes on.
I actually saw that with a sword taker. So what are we gonna see here? So while you're working this out,
what are we gonna see here? Well, we're gonna see Moran struggling to get this cap off. Okay. I was not expecting a hissing sound.
I did know it was a screw cap thing, you know.
No, me neither. But I could kind of see that there was no cork in there. So
this is supposed to be a fruity and rich. A fruity and rich bourbon.
I love how this bottle is kind of flatter on this side, so I can actually grab it easier instead of doing this with my small hands. This is way easier.
Well, the first thing that I can see all the way from the bottle is the colour.
Yeah,
it's kind of toffee, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a Belgian beer called Quack, and it's famous for drinking it from a special kind of glass that will also do a little.
I think it adds to it, doesn't it? I mean, the thing about a drink is that, you can see it, you can smell it, you can taste it. So
now you can hear it as well.
Yeah, and now that it actually covers all 5 senses.
Exactly.
What's your nose? Bourbon.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
It is nice. It's not overly sweet on the nose.
It's not.
It's actually got quite a nice depth to it.
But it is fruity, as you said. Yeah.
And there is a bit of honey in there, but it's not sweet honey.
Yeah, I get like the sugar, real candy sugar.
The tears are a little on the light side, so they tend to run down quite quickly. So
so not super oily.
No, not so complex, but it's a lie.
Okay.
It's a lie. That is very, very nice. But then again, I remember my first ever Maker's Mark. Funny enough.
Okay. Maker's Mark taste.
Take one. You kind of expect that vanilla, but it's not there. It's kind of burnt vanilla, not overly sweet. Like a kind of butterscotch toffee.
It's true. I kind of miss that.
A little nuttiness.
Very nutty, yes. Like hazelnutty. Definitely, not almond nutty, but hazelnutty.
No.
Very distinctive, yeah.
And now when you take the nose after you've tasted it, that spiced honey comes through. That
True.
spiced honey's. I think that's the way the website described it as spiced honey, but I'm not sure I'd call it spiced honey.
No, it's more like that rainy forest.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
earthiness.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
Okay.
Very nice. Quite oaky as well.
And I do get a little vanilla on the nose.
Yep.
But you don't get it in the mouth.
No, there's some interesting videos around Maker's Mark that's worth picking up on YouTube that goes about the barrels and the way they barrel. So the barrels for a lot of the other bourbons done in a certain kind of way, but for Maker's Mark they actually leave the barrels out to dry out more.
Okay.
So when they're actually created, they sort of come with more natural air and everything else, and more oakiness, I guess, is what they're trying to say.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
And of course they're charred.
Yes.
And you go, there's spectacular shots of barrels being set on fire and rolled down.
Oh, I always love how that looks.
It's always good fun, isn't it? There you go. So the finish is not long though.
It's not long, but the taste still lingers in my mouth. I still have in my mouth that feeling that I just drank something.
Yeah, that's normal, but it's not
It's not that
changing or developing into
No,
something different.
it's not. Definitely not. So, do we map this on our 6
That's
axis?
true. Let's absolutely do that. Color, burnt toffee.
Yes. Yes.
Dark amber. Dark amber, I think, is
Dark
probably.
amber.
Let's bring the bottle down
Yeah, exactly. So if you look at the bottle, it is dark. If you compare it to a Glenlivet, for example, which is also pretty dark, this is still dark.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of burnt amber, isn't it? It's a dark amber.
Yeah, and it's kind of got that red hue to it as well. If we kind of compare this with, let's say, the Evan Williams, which doesn't have a lot in the barrel anymore.
No, I like that one.
So this is definitely a browner. The Evan Williams definitely browner hue than the
Yeah, but
Maker's
if you take the
Mark.
Woodford, the other side, yeah, it's on the dark side, isn't it?
It is darker, yes,
Yep.
and a little more reddish as well.
Do you know how unimportant the colour is?
Not at all. Not at all.
But it does imply that warmth. So we'll go with warm amber.
Yep.
Its colour is warm amber. You've heard it here first. All right, smoothness. So again, vanilla-y and smooth on one side, hard.
Yeah.
At the back end, that harsh, peppery kind of.
It was super smooth. No vanilla, but very, very, very smooth.
Butterscotch is a vanilla that's been toasted, burnt.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you know, it's
This is
actually-
why I love doing these things. I always learn something new. Now I know what butterscotch is. Okay.
All right, so I'm going to go with 2 or 3, maybe.
Yeah, because it's got a little hint of pepper.
Yeah,
but
it's
just
nice.
a mere hint. So,
It's on the
yeah,
smooth side, but we'll give it a 3.
It's very
Okay.
smooth.
So
Yes.
maturity is really about the oakiness and sweetness. So if you have it in a barrel that is matured in a wine barrel or a wine cask, it tends to be a lot sweeter than if
Exactly.
it's not.
This didn't get a maturation into like sherry or whatever. So it's only been in that American oak barrel. So it's not that matured. It's not that complex. It's very.
It's oaky.
It's
all right,
no
vanilla-y,
nonsense.
matured.
Normal.
2 or 3 again.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
All right, so we'll go with
2.
2.
Yes.
Sorted.
Boom.
Fruitiness. So none at all on one side, which tends to be more for the really strong peatedness whiskies that don't have a lot of fruit in them. But
Yeah.
I quite like this. It's got some nice berries around it, some forest fruits hinting at
True.
on the finish.
True.
So, but it's not overly fruity.
No, because it wasn't finished in like a sherry cask. It doesn't have all that fruit flavor. It also doesn't have those pears and apples like that you get in a
In an Irish
bourbon
or something,
cask.
yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of in the middle, I guess.
Middle. All right, 4.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with
Yeah,
4.
well,
Less than
4.
half.
4 is
4 works.
almost
for
in
me.
the middle. Yes.
Peatiness.
None at all. It's not a smoky peated whiskey. Kind of get a little.
Yeah, it's a 1.5, 2-ish.
Yeah, maybe 1. Yeah, let's go with 1.
You want to go with 1?
Yes, 1.
Yeah,
1. 1. 1.
1? All right, I'll
it's
give
gonna
you that
be
then.
1.
Then I get to choose finish.
Okay.
All right, finish is an interesting one because it's my favourite part of a whiskey. Some whiskies are just short. They take 5 seconds and they're gone and you're moving on. And some others are
Irish
really...
whiskey.
yeah, nice. There's, some others are long and complex and you can kind of keep them there. 5 minutes later, you're still getting different flavours out of. In this case of Maker's Mark, it's kind of around the 3 or 4-ish in that it has a nice finish. but it's not overly complex.
No,
But it
it's
does
not
vary
changing.
a little bit. But the butterscotch comes out of it a little bit more, and the oakiness kind of fight for that finish. And it's not a short finish; it's 10, 15 seconds. It doesn't just disappear.
I can still taste that I drank Maker's Mark a few minutes ago.
Yeah, and we completely screwed up the tape earlier, so it's been 5 minutes since we tasted it, at least.
At least, yeah. But I still got a little
Yeah.
bit of that flavor in my
So
mouth.
let's go with a 4.
Sure.
I think it's a good finish,
Yes,
so it doesn't deserve anything less.
exactly.
Excellent. So that's what we think of Maker's Mark.
So what do we think, like, overall? What do we score this? What do we give this?
I like it.
You like it? Okay.
I like
cool.
it.
Okay,
It's a long time
okay.
since I've tasted a Maker's Mark. I remember my first one. It was in New York, is where I had Maker's Mark the first time, and yeah, it was a while ago, but it was very, very nice. So I've always liked it. When I can see it, I take it. But things have moved on a little bit, to be fair. I mean, you've got things like the Uncle Nearest, which has got a lot
Which
of
is-
biter and pepper
right,
at the end
yes.
of it. And you've got kind of Jack Daniels, which is that classic banana-y kind of.
Yeah.
But to be honest, they're both different. They're Tennessee whiskies. They're not really bourbon.
No.
But it's taken the tide of time. I think it's classic. It's maintained what it is. It's not changed too much. I tell you what, how we do this. I think to bourbons, Maker's Mark is what Jack Daniels is to Tennessee whiskey.
Yeah, I can kind of agree. Although for me, I kind of like a little bit of rye in my bourbon.
You like a rye in your bourbon.
Yes. Leaving this out, for me, it kind of I don't like corn whiskey. In this Maker's Mark, I kind of taste that corn a little bit too much.
All
for
right.
me.
Well,
for my
before we
taste.
get on to talking about what we linked into the episode 2, let me answer this question. You brought this bottle.
Yes.
If you really don't like corn, are you going to leave it behind?
Maybe.
No, you're not. You're going to take it home, aren't you?
No,
And you're going to enjoy it.
Exactly.
So, Maker's Mark. I think it's a great first episode of Odyssey number 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. So,
where are we gonna go with this? Yeah.
well, we already hinted that we're into 3 different countries in this Odyssey.
Yes, we
And
did.
we've already mentioned
I'm gonna
cover it
make
over.
him winter ready again. So yeah, sure.
Nice.
I think so we talked about barrels, and that is one of the linking things that we're going to run all the way through here. So these bourbon barrels go all around the world, and they second fill for different whiskies.
Exactly, because to be a bourbon, you can only use fresh casks, new
American
casks.
oak, yeah.
So you can't reuse them. But of course, if you've only used the cask once, there's plenty of life left, so you can always reuse them.
So without going to the particular country, there is one set of whiskey regulations that insists that the first maturation is in a bourbon barrel.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a clue as to where we're going.
Ta ta ta.
Ta, ta, ta. And I guess
Okay.
the second clue, I'm not going to give you the specifics, but we did kind of talk about who owns this Maker's Mark whiskey now. And I think that's enough. So if in the comments below, you can work out what we're going to taste next time that's linked to the Maker's Mark with the barrel and the owners, and see whether you're right. And that will be episode 2 of Whiskey at Ease.
Looking forward to that. See you for episode 2. Ciao.